this is the first of 5 lectures on a topic that I think is very important, and I believe that by studying the causes of victory and defeat, and also then taking that knowledge and applying it to the first empires that Islam knew. So that would be the Umayyad Empire with its capital in Damascus, and then after them the Abbasid Empire with its capital in Baghdad, and then finally the Ottoman Empire with its capital in Istanbul. We'll begin to see how it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted this ummah victory, has granted this ummah power and authority, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted them prosperity. But then we'll also see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes that away. So now that we are living at this time when we are looking at the situation of Muslims around the world, we look at the situation of our Muslim brothers and sisters in many places, Iraq, Afghanistan, Burma, the Central African Republic, and so many different other places. Palestine is obviously at the forefront because of Bayt al-Maqdis and Masjid al-Aqsa, so this is something that we think about all the time. But what I want to do before we start is to talk about the Prophet ﷺ in Makkah. So the first thing we want to say is that if we look at Makkah, and we look at the Prophet ﷺ giving da'wah in this city, he starts giving da'wah secretly. He's moving around with family and friends. He's having secret gatherings in the homes of his family members, his own home, and in the house of Al-Arqam ibn Abil Arqam. And the Prophet ﷺ is inviting them to Islam. But what is Islam at this particular point? Is it to pray 5 times a day? Is it to perform the Hajj, fast the month of Ramadan? Is it to fight in jihad in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The answer to all of those questions is no. The main thing that the Prophet ﷺ is calling the people to is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and exclusively. And if we think about that, if we think that that is the basis, to teach people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is worthy of worship, to teach people about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I teach a lot of teenagers. I have a lot of courses that we do with teenagers, and right now I'm teaching a class with 3 boys. One of them is Japanese. He came all the way from Japan to come and study Quran and basic Islamic studies. And what I find with the youth around the world is that they have a difficult time praying, fasting, staying away from haram. And the reason for that is because they don't know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the people of Makkah, those people that accepted Islam, Abu Bakr and Umar, and Hafsa and Aisha, and all of the men and women, the young and the old that accepted Islam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the hijrah, He commands them to pray and to fast and to fight in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to sacrifice their lives and their wealth. Why is it that every one of them can say, Sami'na wa ata'na? We hear and we obey. Because they know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they know why they are fighting, they know why they are making these sacrifices, they know that Allah has promised them Jannah if they do so, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised them victory if they commit and they make these sacrifices. But today it's very difficult for us and for our children to understand this, especially for us as Malaysians, and as for myself as a South African who was born into a Muslim family and into a Muslim community. We don't really appreciate that. We don't really understand what it means to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, when I teach these courses to teenagers, I ask them, if someone asks you why you believe in Allah, and how do you prove Allah's existence, and how do you know that Allah alone is worthy of worship, and on what basis do you believe that the Quran is the word of Allah and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the messenger of Allah? Let's be honest, most youth will be unable to answer that question. So then it's not difficult to understand why it is that we don't pray, why it is that we don't fast, why it is that we have abandoned jihad, why it is that we only focus on ourselves. I'm only worried about me. I'm not worried about any of you. As long as my family is fed and my bills are paid and I'm comfortable, I don't care what's happening in Palestine. I don't care what's happening in Iraq and Afghanistan. So what? The Muslims are being, persecuted in Africa, in Asia, in other parts of the world, in France and America. It's not my concern. So what I want to do tonight, inshallah ta'ala, with this first lecture, is to look at the reasons why the Muslims in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and in the time of his Sahaba, the time of the Khulafa al-Rashideen, and why it is that in the early part of every single empire that has ever existed in Islamic history, why is it that they were all so successful? What were those causes of victory and success? Why were they able to establish themselves on earth? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them victory over their enemies? Why were they able to establish these amazing communities? Read the biography of a man like Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah. Look at what that man was able to achieve. He's one of thousands of ulama, but he stands out amongst them. You see the kind of stability, the kind of prosperity that was available in Bukhara. People like Imam al-Bukhari, people like Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, these were people that were financially independent, that lived at a time when there were no real wars within the community, where there was strength amongst the khulafa, where there was administration and it was running smoothly. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us victory over our enemies. He allowed us to establish, these centers of learning, whether it was in Makkah or Medina or Damascus or Baghdad. Why was it that at these early times, there were these, amazing signs of progress and victory and success? So that's what we want to talk about tonight. In our next lecture, we'll begin to survey and study the causes of defeat, the causes of what we call in Arabic takhalluf. Where did we go wrong? Why? Because it's not enough for us to do an analysis of what makes us successful, but it's very important for us to do an analysis of why and how things go wrong. I'm sure that right now in the political situation in Malaysia, there are going to be political analysts and historians that are going to study this for a very long time. In South Africa, we are still studying the transition between apartheid and democracy. And we're still trying to get to grips to what has gone right and what has gone wrong. In fact, there are people here in Malaysia who visit South Africa to study, one of those topics that they study is affirmative action. Because after 1994, if you were not a white person, you wanted to know how you could, improve your station in life. And so what the government did was to provide special concessions and develop laws that would give people of color the ability to progress. Make sure, for instance, one of the most controversial ones in South Africa is the quota system in sport. Our rugby team needs to have a certain number of black people on the team. Universities need to enroll a certain number of black people at the university. If you apply for a job, you need to have certain, there needs to be a certain quota at your company. And if two people apply for the same job, if one of them is white and the other one is not white, then the company is going to give preference to the non-white person. But is that working? Has it really raised the standard of living for black South Africans? Whether they are black South Africans from the Xhosa, Zulu, Sotho, or whether they are from the Cape Malay community or the Indian community. So the reality is that if we're going to study where we went right and where we went wrong, it enables us that as we plan for the future, to focus on what works and what doesn't. To focus on what brings about success and what brings about the opposite of success. What leads to the downfall of the Muslim community. Like one of the Sahaba, he used to ask the Prophet ﷺ about all the evil and bad things. This is Hudayfa radiallahu anhu. Why did he ask the Prophet ﷺ about all the evil things that would happen? Human nature is that we only want to know what the rewards are going to be. We only want to know what's in it for me. But he wanted to know about all the bad. Ya Rasulullah, after you pass away, and you are no longer with us, what's going to happen? The Prophet ﷺ told him. Why? As the poet says, عَرَفْتُ الشَّرَّ لَا لِلشَّرِّ. I studied evil, not for the sake of evil, not so that I could do it, but so that I could avoid it. And that's the wise person. The wise person, like right now with the coronavirus, what do we find? People are trying to understand how they can avoid, getting sick. Don't shake hands, sanitize your hands. People are developing songs now so that, people learn these messages. And everyone, everywhere you go, this is something important, there's something that people are studying, and people think, they're really serious about these things. Why? Because they're worried about their health. They're worried about their well-being. So if we as a community, if we are concerned about our well-being, the first thing is to focus on what we need to do. We don't want to go back to those times. We don't live in the time of the Prophet ﷺ anymore. We don't live in the time of the Umayyads or the Abbasids or the Ottomans. Right? That time is over. But what we are concerned about is what success Allah granted those people, is that available to us as well? Can we also achieve it? We don't want to go back in time. But we want to have what they had. And how does it come about? What do we need? This is what we want to spend our time studying tonight and tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. Next week, what I'm going to do is we're going to look at the Umayyad dynasty. I'm going to give you a historical overview. We'll start at the beginning until the fall of that dynasty. So there's a lot to cover, but I'll summarize it to the best of my ability. Then at the end of each of those 3 lectures, we'll do an analysis of what went right and where did things go wrong, so that you and I can be prepared. One scholar, he said, what is happening in Syria and around the Muslim world with the Arab Spring and civil war in Libya and Syria and other places, he says, this is a drop in the ocean of things to come. It's a drop in the ocean of things to come. And now, subhanAllah, that sheikh was arrested and he remains in prison in Saudi Arabia. So these are the kinds of things that people are being persecuted for. But what he was saying is that what is going to happen in the future is going to pale in comparison to what is happening now. And you and I need to be prepared so that we are doing our part to make sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us victory and success. So the first thing that I want to talk about in regard to that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَلَقَدْ سَبَقَتْ كَلِمَتُنَا لِعِبَادِنَا الْمُرْسَلِينَ إِنَّهُمْ لَهُمُ الْمَنْصُورُونَ وَإِنَّ جُنْدَنَا لَهُمُ الْغَالِبُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that His word has already preceded. That His prophets and His messages, they will be victorious. And all of those who follow in their footsteps, in the final analysis, the final outcome, the prophets and their followers, they will be victorious. It's a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what I want to start with tonight. That no matter what's happening in the Muslim world, no matter how many wars we are fighting, no matter how many famines and droughts and difficulty and persecution we as a Muslim Ummah are facing, we need to understand and have full certainty and yaqeen that the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true. This is where we need, this is the, al-intilaq. This is the point from which we proceed. That we need to be certain. We can't be, I don't know, I'm not sure. It's possibly, how is it possible? You have that country, and that country spends hundreds of billions of dollars, on its military. How would we ever be able to withstand that? Subhanallah, just as a historical reminder, the Afghani people, they have twice now withstood that army. Twice in the last 50 years. They stood up against the Soviets when they invaded their country in 1979. And they have stood against the Americans since 2001. So we need to have certainty that even though the material means might seem stacked against us, the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true. When the Muslims were being persecuted in Makkah, Khabbab ibn al-Arati came to the Prophet at the Kaaba and he said, "O Messenger of Allah, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate our suffering." But what did the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tell him? That you are an impatient people. We seem to have that as well, don't we? And we're impatient for results. We live in the time of instant gratification. Everything needs to happen now. You are an impatient people. Wallahi, the people before you were persecuted in worse ways. A man would be brought, and that man would be told to renounce his religion, and he would refuse. Then a sword would be placed on the middle of his head. They would tell him again, renounce your religion, and he would refuse because Iman was so strong in his heart. And then they would begin to saw him in half. Ask yourself now, a lot of us say that, oh, if I was in that position, I would be the same. Lots of us say that, don't we? Alhamdulillah, I'm a strong Muslim. I will also, be firm. How do you know? Let's say young people, when you talk to them about what happened to the Prophet ﷺ at the Battle of Hunayn, they say, I would never have deserted the Prophet ﷺ. I would have stood my ground. Really? SubhanAllah. I always have this funny story that I tell when this story comes up. I had a friend that studied with me, and he was, he was into martial arts, and he knew how to handle weapons, and like firearms. He worked in the what we call it in Cape Town. The neighbor would watch. And so one day we were sitting in my dorm room, and he's sitting on the floor. I'm sitting on my bed. We're having some tea. We're talking, and a cockroach, walks from under my bed, into the gathering. And this guy jumps up and he screams a scream that I've never heard a man scream before. And then I realized that no amount of bravado, no amount of macho talking, prepares you for certain situations in life. Yes, you might be a fierce fighter, and might be in martial arts, mashallah, you're really good. But if it's life and death, if it's a really serious situation, you might not be the same. But anyway, coming back to this, Khabbab ibn al-Arat is told by the Prophet ﷺ that one day you will conquer the Persian Empire. Just imagine that. You are being persecuted. The Muslim community can be counted on one's fingers. That's how many people are Muslim in Makkah. But the Prophet ﷺ is telling them that one day you will conquer the Persian Empire. The riches and the treasures of that empire will be in your hands. What kind of yaqeen do you need to have in Allah and His Messenger to say, that's haq, that's going to happen one day. We will achieve that. I'll give you one more tangible example of this. The Crusaders conquered Jerusalem in 1099. It was a massacre and a bloodbath. And for the next 88 years, Jerusalem and Syria and Lebanon were under the control of the Christians. Until Salahuddin al-Ayyubi and his armies took back the city of Jerusalem, Baytul Maqdis, Masjid al-Aqsa, and most of Palestine and Lebanon and Jordan and Syria. Imagine you told Muslims in 1099 that inshallah there'll come a day where all of this will seem but like a bad memory or a bad dream. I don't think anyone would have really had certainty in that, except those who believe in the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have certainty in it. Can you imagine what it must have felt like for those Muslims whose parents or grandparents were expelled from Baytul Maqdis and Palestine during the First Crusade, who fled Palestine and they went to seek help from the Khalifa in Baghdad? Just imagine. Now your grandmother or your grandfather told you the story of how they used to pray in Masjid al-Aqsa, and now you are here taking it back from the Crusaders and the Christians, and now Muslims are praying in that masjid, again, it's the same thing that we will tell to our children now. That yes, we don't have control over the city. We don't have control over this masjid. Muslims are being persecuted in Gaza, in the West Bank, and around the world. Imagine we said to our children, have sabr. Because the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true. That we will be victorious. But the question is, what are the conditions of that victory? That's what we want to spend time on. What are the causes? How did Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi take this Muslim world that was so disunited and unite them under one standard, and then march on those Crusader kingdoms and topple them one after the other? Now the Muslims only finally conquered all of the Crusader states almost 100 years after Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi was able to take back Masjid al-Aqsa. But that's the story that we'll tell another night, inshaAllah ta'ala. Because that story is heavily connected to the fall of Baghdad. Right? And that will be the end of our discussion of the Abbasid Khilafah. Although there's something I want you to do some research on. Because I know, mashallah, all of you love to read and love to do research. This is the, in Arabic we call this tafa'ulan. It's like a good omen that I say these words. So even though it might not be technically true, we think positively, right? We're thinking good thoughts, alhamdulillah, and we're asking Allah to make it a reality. So you all love to read and you all love to do research. My question to you is that the Mongols sacked the city of Baghdad in the year 1258. Okay? But according to some historians, the Abbasid Khilafah continues for almost another maybe 180 years, or maybe longer than that. Because in 1517, that's when the Khilafah, the Abbasid Khalifa in Baghdad, not in Baghdad, in Cairo, he sends he's basically the mantle, the robe of the Prophet ﷺ, and he sends that to the Ottoman Sultan. It's in 1517 that the Ottoman Sultan becomes the Khalifa of the Muslims. Because before that, he was only known as a Sultan. Why? Because many Muslims, especially in Egypt, they still believe that the Abbasid Khalifa was still, that the Khilafah was still present in Cairo, in Egypt. So my question to you is, your research, we call it a thesis, your paper that needs to be completed by Tuesday, inshallah. I see all of you thought this was just going to be a lecture. You didn't know it was going to turn into something like this. But on a serious note, I want you to do some research, do some reading, ask some questions. Maybe some of you know professors at UIA and ISLAMIC, and people that are well read in history, and ask them whether or not that's true. That the Abbasid Khilafah did not end in 1258, but continued for a few more hundred years in Cairo under the patronage of the Mamluk dynasty. Okay, it's a question. We do some research, and inshallah, just by reading and just asking some questions, you prepare yourself very well. Someone will translate it in the future. Perhaps if some of you can do some research on this, if there's a book in English on this topic, Actions of the Heart. When I teach the course, The Believer's Shield, we focus on 12 of them, or 16. I think it's 16. 16 actions of the heart, like tawakkul, like sabr, like the fear of Allah, like hoping for the mercy of Allah, loving Allah and His Messenger and Islam. These are but a few examples of the actions of the heart which Allah loves, which Allah praises in the Quran, and which the Prophet ﷺ encourages and teaches and praises and shares these beautiful rewards and virtues of. So this is something that we need to develop. We are living at a time now where if you ask any young person or old, give me an example of ibadah, what will most people say? Salah. Like that's the first thing that comes to mind. But you're not even thinking sabr. tawakkul, khashiyah. That's not something that people think about. Even, and when you talk, you know, when I teach a marriage course, I say to the people, the students, I say to them that the Prophet ﷺ said that even placing a morsel of food in your wife's mouth is a sadaqah. Subhanallah. Last week I gave a talk at the Asia Pacific University. And the topic of the talk was balance between deen and dunya. And I said that the Prophet ﷺ said that no Muslim plants a tree. Listen carefully. No Muslim plants a tree. And the beasts and human beings and anything eats from that tree except that it will be a sadaqah for him. Planting a tree. Is there anyone here that does gardening? Anyone that owns a tree? Anyone that has some fruit trees? That insects and animals and birds and people, they get to enjoy the fruits and the shade of that tree. Wallahi, there's sadaqah for you in that as well. So it doesn't have to be salah only, or Quran only, or sadaqah that you've given only, whether it's compulsory or voluntary. But it's all of these things. And one of the things I want to focus on here is that establishing the sharia of Allah in our communities, in our lives, that is an ibadah as well. Making sure that when the judgment of Allah is given, you do not prefer any other judgment. Like two companions came to the Prophet ﷺ, they were having a dispute about land and water. They were having a dispute about land and water, and they wanted the Prophet ﷺ to judge between them. So the Prophet gave his judgment. One of them was not happy with the Prophet's judgment. He didn't like what the Prophet had to say. So he went to others to ask, like Abu Bakr and Umar, he wanted a second opinion. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah in Surah An-Nisa. فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. And by your Lord, O Muhammad, they do not believe until they make you an arbitrator in the disputes they have amongst themselves. And when you have given your judgment, they do not find any opposition to it within themselves, and they submit to it with complete submission. So to be a believer, one aspect of Iman is that no judgment after the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger is preferred, is considered. We submit to that completely. For instance, very controversial issue, inheritance. Your mother or your father passes away and they've left behind an estate. It might be large, it might be small. It could be 100 ringgit, it could be 1,000,000 ringgit. Doesn't matter. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has judged what your portion should be as a son or a daughter. But what we find around the Muslim world, even in countries that have Muslim personal law, is everything off? Well, this works. Probably on the timer. So, it will be 5 minutes before everyone starts sweating. Not working? Alright, fair inshallah, so I'll continue. You want to see our Sheikh there, he will take care of this for us inshallah. There we go. Allah, Allah. You just need a special touch, apparently. So what was I saying? That the Prophet ﷺ gave his judgment on that issue, and Allah gave his judgment on the issue of inheritance. So we should accept it. If your portion is to get 1/8, that is alhamdulillah, this is what Allah has decided. No, but I was taking care of mom and dad, and my brothers and sisters, they were never around, and I did this and I did that, and it's not fair that I only get 1/8 now, or 1/16 or 1/24, whatever my share might be. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed that for you. The Sahaba, wallahi, when it came to this issue, they had a level of iman, and this is a good deed, by the way. This is an amal salih right here. This is what we said earlier. That it's not just salah and zakah. It is submitting and doing taslim, submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything that He has commanded. Did you know that during the Ottoman Empire, the Khalifa and the Sultan would not go to war until he gets a fatwa from the Shaykh al-Islam, the Mufti of the Ottoman Empire? In fact, most decisions in the Ottoman Empire, especially at the beginning, were taken by the Shaykh al-Islam. The Shaykh al-Islam and the Grand Vizier were like, on an equal level. That's like having the Vice Prime Minister, right, or the second in command, the Deputy Prime Minister, and the Mufti of KL on the same level when it comes to the government. That's how it was. Why? Because they were doing everything that they were doing according to the Sharia. Going to war, deciding on economic programs and policies. Bring the Mufti in. In fact, wallahi, what surprised me during my reading on Ottoman history is that in the early period, from the beginning, so we'll talk about this on Wednesday, but just to sort of preempt it because it's related to what we are discussing now. You find that the Shaykh al-Islam, the Mufti, he had a status that no one else had in the empire. He was able to, everyone else could not kiss the shoulder of the Sultan, but he could. If the Sultan wanted to go to war, he had to wait for a fatwa, and wallahi, sometimes the Mufti said no, that this war is not justified, that economic policy is un-Islamic, and the Sultan would say, well then, we won't implement it. Can you imagine this? That we were at the level of submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where every governmental decision, in every major one, we waited for the hukm of Allah and His Messenger on that. But now, there's a fatwa. That's fatwa and this is politics. That's a fatwa and this is the economy. Two separate things, my friend. We have separated between them. And we are concerned why it is that the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not come. When we have decided that the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be relegated to just a few aspects of our lives. Anyway, the third thing that I want to discuss based on this ayah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises those who believe, minkum. The third thing is that we need to have a community of believers that follow in the footsteps of the Sahaba. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah has promised those who believe amongst you. Who's you? This ayah, who was the first community that heard these verses? The companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah says, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. And if they believe in what you have believed, then they will be guided. Who's Allah talking to? Abu Bakr, and Umar, and Uthman, and Aisha, and Hafsa, and Khadija. If they believe, those who come after you, if they believe like you believe, they will be guided. And Allah is saying, He has promised those who believe amongst you the Sahaba. Those who believe and those who would do good deeds, we will grant and establish for them this authority on earth. And we will substitute their fear with security and peace of mind. So we owe it to ourselves. As Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu told us. I want you to pay careful attention to the statement of this companion. He says, whoever wants to follow or to take a role model, let him take as a role model the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because if you take a living person as a role model, you cannot guarantee that that person will not go astray. Can you? You don't know. You might want to follow me, but who knows how I will die and how I will live the rest of my life. You might want to follow Mufti Mink or someone else. And you want to follow that person, but you do not know what that person's end will be. As for the companions, these are people that Allah Himself guaranteed Jannah for. Let us think about that for a moment. If we were to ask ourselves, who should we follow? What role model should we, what blueprint should we use? Then the companions of the Prophet ﷺ are the best example for us. Because these are people that were guaranteed Jannah by Allah and His Messenger. رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Him. As Allah said that about us. Any sheikh you know, any ustaz or ustazah, no. But those men and women, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly states that they are the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. They will go to Jannah. He's promised them Jannah. And we know that, the individual stories. But Abdullah ibn Mas'ud continues. He says, why? Because they were the people that had the purest hearts. Allah chose them to be the companions of the Prophet ﷺ because they had the purest hearts and they had the best actions and they had the most in-depth knowledge and they had the greatest, commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to Islam. Who better to follow than these people? So if you're asking, what are the causes of victory and success? I will tell you that it is Iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it is good deeds. But that Iman and those good deeds, Allah and His Messenger tells us that we need to understand it in light of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let me ask you, can you name 10 companions? Okay. Not the 10 that were given the tidings of Jannah. Some lesser known Sahaba. What about 10 of the Tabi'een? So your exercise, your homework for Monday. I want you to come up with a name, with a list of 10 Sahaba that you've never heard of before. 10 Sahaba that you've never heard. Not Anas ibn Malik, not Abdullah ibn Umar, not Aisha, not Hafsa, not Maymuna, not Khadija, not Abdurrahman ibn Auf and others. 10 companions you've never heard of. Men, women, children, it matters not. Then 10 names of the Tabi'een and 10 names of the Atba'u Tabi'een. The second list and the third list will be beneficial for Monday, inshallah. When we talk about the Umayyad dynasty. Because the Umayyad dynasty begins in the year 41. The first Khalifa in that dynasty is Muawiyah. Yes? But then his son Yazid was not a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. So he's from the Tabi'een. But is he someone that we want to emulate? Is he someone whose footsteps we want to follow? No. So we will begin to see one of the reasons for defeat and for going astray is if we no longer follow in the footsteps of those who came in that first generation. We follow a different path. And it can be as simple as not following the path of your own father. Never mind someone that is a stranger to you or that you've only read stories about, like Abu Bakr. Did Yazid ibn Muawiyah meet Abu Bakr and Umar? No. So he was separated from that golden, I shouldn't say golden, but I should say that the earliest companions and the real pioneers. Because, quick question, this is a quiz question. When did Muawiyah accept Islam? Okay, we should end this lecture now and head off home. When did Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan accept Islam? So, I heard? Yes, the conquest of Makkah. Okay, we can say inshallah. Right? Things are not looking as bleak as we initially imagined. So, he accepted Islam at the conquest of Makkah in the 8th year. So, he was not there for the Hijrah. not there for Badr or for Uhud or for any of these important, or the hijrah to Abyssinia before that, and so on and so forth. So even then, subhanallah, one day Khalid ibn Walid and Abdurrahman ibn Auf, they were having an argument. And Khalid said to Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he was cursing him and swearing at him, and they were having this debate, and this argument rather. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard about this, he said, Wallahi, do not swear, do not curse my companions. Wallahi, if any one of you, those who accepted Islam after the conquest of Makkah, was to spend the whole of Uhud in gold, it would not be equivalent to what one of my companions gave, even if it's a half, like just one handful. Those people who spent in the path of Allah and who made sacrifices before the conquest of Makkah, they are not equal to those people who accepted Islam after. So even amongst the Sahaba, they are levels, right? You have like the earliest Muslims, then you have the Muhajirin, then you have the Ansar, and then you have the people that accepted Islam after the conquest of Makkah. These are all these different categories. We need to know these people, because if you look at every one of the dynasties that we will discuss in empires, they all try to go back to a time when the Sahaba were ruling according to the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Let me ask you, besides Muawiyah and Yazid, who's another famous Umayyad Khalifa that you can mention? There were 14 of them, by the way. There were 14. I just named the first two. And then Muawiyah, the son of Yazid, the son of Muawiyah, he was the third. And that brings us to the end of that first branch of the Umayyad dynasty. The second branch is called the Marwani branch. The first branch is called the Sufyani branch. Anyway, we'll talk about this on Monday. But the person that most people remember is Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz stands out. Why? Because he was following in the footsteps of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. That's why he's called Umar the second, as some people call him. Umar al-Thani. Because he was trying to establish the Sharia. He was trying to establish justice according to Islam, according to the Quran, and according to the Sunnah. Right. So now we know that we need to establish a community of believers that's modeled on the way of the Sahaba. And number 4, the fourth thing we take from Surah An-Nur, ayah number 55, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَعْبُدُونَنِي لَا يُشْرِكُونَ بِي. And wallahi, in this time that we are living in now, this is one of the most important causes for victory. They worship me alone, and they do not associate partners with me. I'm only going to speak about my own city. I cannot speak for Turkey, I cannot speak for Iraq, I cannot speak for Pakistan, for Bangladesh, although I've seen these things in some of these countries that I've mentioned. When I was accepted to study at the Islamic University of Medina, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant my father and all of our deceased parents Jannatul Firdaus. But at the time, my father was practicing a form of folk Islam, if you want to call it that. So I got my acceptance letter, and my dad said to me, we need to go and ask the awliya. Now at the time I didn't know, I wasn't a student of knowledge. I didn't know about Tawheed and Shirk and how important it is in Islam. So I went with my father. If any one of you has been to Cape Town, you know that there's Table Mountain, there's Devil's Peak, and then there's Signal Hill. And Lion's Head. This beautiful view, you've got these peaks on either side of Table Mountain. So there's a Kramat. In Pakistan and India, they call it the Dargah. Other people, they call it the Mazar. Right? So different names in the Muslim world for these places. But it's the mausoleum that's built on the grave of a saint, a wali as they are called. So my father said, we need to go there, we need to ask the sheikh, we need to ask the wali, if you should go and study at the Islamic University of Medina. So we went in, my father said, sit behind me, and the grave was in front of my dad, and then my father started reading and reciting something, which to this day I don't know, I never asked him again. I tried to I tried to forget about this, after. But at the time, innocent, don't know, and I just followed my dad. So my dad was asking the sheikh. So basically what he did was, after he did his, whatever he was reciting, he took a tasbih, the musabbiha, that people use, the beads, and he held it up. And basically what he was saying was that the sheikh should let him know, if the beads move right, then I should go and study at the Islamic University of Medina, and if the beads move left, then I should not go and study at the Islamic University of Medina. But as we know, since Medina is a Wahhabi institution, the beads move left. Right? So the beads move left. And my father also used to teach us that when we make dua, we must make dua to Abdul Qadir Jilani, rahimahullah, great scholar of Islam, one of the greatest Hanbali scholars in Iraq and Baghdad. Right? Great scholar, subhanAllah. He died before the year 600. So people used to flock to him because he was known for his knowledge and his piety. But people have exaggerated his status after him. So what I'm trying to say to you is that Allah says in the Quran, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. The masajid are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so do not make dua to anyone besides Allah. There's no dua to Abdul Qadir Jilani, there's no dua to Tuang Guru, or Tuang Nurul Mubin. These are all Kramats in Cape Town, pious people who came from Sulawesi and Java and other places. They were brought by the Dutch to Cape Town as political prisoners, as slaves, as laborers. And they, because of their piety and because of their knowledge, they were the ones who taught Islam. In fact, one of them, he was able to rewrite the entire Quran from memory to the community of those early Muslims in the 17th century. Handwritten. And now we found out that there's just a few mistakes, which is human. But subhanAllah, under those circumstances, so those were great people, but it does not mean that we should take them as intermediaries between ourselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sanctioned in the strongest possible way. In fact, Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ. Indeed, Allah does not forgive that anything is associated with Him, but He will forgive anything besides that. Allah will forgive murder, He will forgive adultery and fornication, He will forgive gambling, He will forgive drinking alcohol and using drugs, but He will not forgive that a community, or a person rather, commits shirk with Him by making dua to others besides Him, and by making sujood to others besides Him, and by believing in all sorts of things. One of the things that we will discuss on Wednesday is that in the Ottoman Empire there came a time where astrology became a massive part of the court functions. You had an official astrologer in the Ottoman court figuring out whether or not it was auspicious to go on war, whether now was a good time to have a particular celebration. What should we do? Oh, let's consult the stars. This is also a form of shirk. Allah is saying that if you and I, one of the causes of Muslim success is the ability that we have to realize the main core of this religion, which is to worship Allah alone, Tawheed, and not associate any partners with Him in any way, shape or form. Whether it be in law, whether it be in ibadah, whether it be in the names and attributes of Allah. If someone says to you that I know someone who's more merciful than Allah, what do we call that? We call that shirk. In fact, perhaps you should write this down. Shirk is to give to other than Allah what belongs to Allah alone. What is shirk? Is shirk worshipping an idol? Yes. Why? Because Allah alone should be worshipped. That ibadah belongs to Allah alone. So if you give it to someone or something else, that's shirk. If you believe that there's a sharia, is a law code better than the law code of Allah, is someone worthy of obedience, and is someone who has greater authority than Allah, that's shirk. If you believe that there's someone who provides for you other than Allah, that's shirk. If you go to a fortune teller and you believe that they have knowledge of the unseen, you have committed shirk in the attributes attributes of Allah because He alone has knowledge of the unseen. Is this all clear to us? We need to understand this. That the core of our success, we spoke about Iman and what it entails, but the core of it is that we have a community that places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above all else, that fulfills all of its rights towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and gives nothing to anyone or anything that should only be given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't give anything of that to anyone else. Ibadah, belief, legal authority, whatever it might be, whatever belongs to Allah alone, we as a community only give to Allah.